United Civil Rights Council of America is a collection of family rights activists, both from the divorce world, the paternity world, the Child Protective Services world, and others who experience parental alienation and other symptoms of the fallout and the aftermath of the breakdown that family courts in America actually are. And what we're excited about this year with the presidential election and just that whole energy level, of course, everybody wants change, 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 change. And everybody in the family rights movement knows that we need dramatic change for our children and for our families. There's even extended family members suffering from this. When you take a child away from one of its own two parents, you're taking a child away from half of itself. And the extended family members also suffer. So you're actually depriving our children. Our family court judges are depriving our children of half of themselves all the time to give like sole custody or something that gives a dramatic parenting time with one side and not the other. It kind of warps our children, and they're deprived of half of themselves. And that, of course, is the main core reason why we're rampant in this country now, with 10 and 15 and 20 times more likely of the kids to be in suicides and drugs and high school dropouts and gang violence and teenage pregnancies and this and that and the other. Well, it's because they don't have direction. They don't have the nurturing, bonding spirit from the mother, and they don't have the discipline, control spirit from the father, and this affects both our young girls and our young boys. It's just devastating to our American way of life. Family is not together anymore. At least the child still needs to be with both parents to be able to progress and grow and learn and develop healthily and naturally, so we can have a functioning society as opposed to a society that's literally falling apart. There's problems with many federal funding schemes out there, and one example is the Child Protective Services agencies in different states. Unfortunately, they're not based usually on true needs, on true investigation of what's really needed. They're paid by commission most often, so it's actually a mercenary basis that the social workers themselves within a department or whatever, they get their minimum. It's like being a waitress or a waiter at a restaurant. You get your really base minimum wage, which just doesn't cut it, and then you get your tips. And that's what they have. The more children that they remove out of the home, the more money they make directly, because the state then makes more federal funding dollars too. And of course, then they bump it up even higher. They want special needs children, because instead of $5,000 per child, now you get $8,000 for a child. And so, of course, every child that goes through the Child Protective Services miraculously comes up that they have to have some sort of additional treatment, you see, because they need the money, they need the administration. We need government to grow bigger and fatter and more lethargic. So that's just one example. Child support is a terrible myth in this country. Back in 1975, when OSCE, which is the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement, got started, again, a laudable goal. There were some children out there that were suffering because their non-custodial parents were, not shaping up. But at that time, we already had an 80 to 81% full payment rate from non-custodial parents to custodial parents, even before there was any kind of administration or enforcement for child support. In other words, most people paid, everything was hunky-dory, and you didn't have to spend billions of dollars a year funding a system that now, after 33 years later, we have spent, I don't know, $400 billion, over 10 times the entire amount of all child support that was ever owed by anybody, and we have dramatically increased our percentage enforcement rate up by a single whole percent. Well, at the bottom core, it's really an awareness issue. I mean, whether we're fighting in court, or whether we're talking to legislators, or whether I'm talking to you right now on the video, it's still an education matter. You want people to understand what's wrong, what needs to be done. Because once you take the time away from a parent and a child, I don't care what the reason is, you cannot have a relationship without time. And so whether it's a husband-wife and they live apart, they don't spend much time together, their marriage is going to break down. Same thing with a parent and child. If they physically don't have the time to do the little things that create the bonds, that relationship is going to erode regardless, one way or another. And so when we, as a system in this country, when we actually are ignoring what's called equal protection to give mothers and fathers an equal starting point in the court, and then if they mess up, then they mess up. See, that's what we should do. So we need to educate our judges and our attorneys that this is the law and they need to follow it. And the other side of that is we need to always do what we're doing right now, right here in this spot, which is spreading awareness and education to the people themselves. And of course there's a whole level. You got your legislators and politicians, you've got your judges and court industry, there's the American taxpayer. If they realized what they were paying for, they would be outraged. I mean, we're literally funding our own societal doom. I mean, literally. And not only that, but it spills out into all kinds of programs that we wouldn't need. We talked about the drug abuse, the high school dropouts, the teenage pregnancies, the gang violence, the suicides, this, that, and the other. But stop and think for a minute how much money that costs the American taxpayer every day. So if we would just back up the clock and say, okay, parents, in a divorce or a similar situation, you both start out equally because you do have constitutional rights, and we start from there. And in most cases, that's going to work for most cases. Sure, they're in divorce court because they don't get along anymore. That's true. But if you take away the main thing that they want to try to fight about, as we've removed that from the picture, you can't even fight about that anymore. Most of that fight also goes away. Well, there's three kinds of support that I know that they need. One is the ongoing back and forth legal help, and another is just the pure venting or talk about it help. They need a discussion group so that they can actually learn that what they're going through is not unique. It's not a devastating, oh my gosh, how did this happen to only me in the entire world? No, they need to understand first that everybody's going, or there's a lot of people going through it. I mean, literally in this country, we've probably affected over half of this country by now, including extended family members. So they need to know the social network is out there, legal help, and then there's usually going to be looking for some sorts of therapy, counseling, and that kind of thing for the affected family members. What many of us have in this country is an organization called United Civil Rights Councils of America. That's at unitedcivilrights.org. And we have spent a year and a half gathering up known people and known organizations across the country, in every state and every county. Let me back that up, in every populated, busy state and county area. And out of the 3,000 some counties in our 50 states, we have about 1,000 listed leaders right now with photos and content information all over the country, and another 15, 20,000 sitting in these county Yahoo groups, or little e-discussion groups for every county out there, and of course for every state and some regions. And because of all this coming together of many organizations, and you can see all of them with all the different organizations that they support in each different state, so forth. Because of that, you have many different people working on all kinds of different things. We have Parental Alienation here today. We sometimes have people going to court watching and defending you in your court case or what have you. We make trips to governor's offices, and we make trips to legislators, and we do all these kinds of things. So when you've got thousands of people doing all kinds of different things, and you get these 57 people doing the same thing together, that creates more success, and it creates more results, and the same thing that we're trying to do everywhere. So we would suggest that everybody get hooked into UnitedCivilRights.org. You can find your own state or your own county group of people who are there right now, and that you can lean on for support, both for social, therapeutic, legal, and I don't know, play golf too, maybe, I don't know. The entire universe has got negative and positive, and we could go into karma, whatever you want to call it. But basically, if I am a good and loving parent and my children are in danger or encumbered or they're in some way interfered or burdened, then I as a parent must do something about that, no matter how long it takes, no matter what it takes.